Hello everyone! Jumping straight in, let's talk about the campaign map for Total War Warhammer 3, and where I think the legendary lords revealed so far will start. While we don't yet have the full map in high resolution, we do have this glimpse that was included in photos of the limited physical copy of the game. This map, with the portions you see where the Chaos God stickers were edited, I believe by Cody Bonds. He's a great YouTuber, you should check him out. But if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments and let me know who did it so I can give them credit. Now before I start with Kairos Fateweaver, since we know the most about his start position from the blog that detailed his campaign mechanics, let's take a quick look at the Vortex map from Warhammer 2, because I think it will give some idea as to what we can expect for Game 3's base game lords. Looking at the map, we can see that every legendary lord starts with a fair amount of provinces between them and any other legendary lord. The only lords relatively close to each other are Kroq-Gar and Queek Headtaker. Very little has been revealed so far about how Warhammer 3's standalone story campaign will function, so we can assume that Creative Assembly will want players to have more freedom in their initial turns of a campaign without any major threats that risk you failing a campaign in the first turns, because that's not fun for most people. So I think no legendary lords starting right next to each other, with the possible exception of Kairos Fateweaver and Miao Ying near the Great Bastion of Cathay, since they've both featured heavily against each other. So starting with Kairos Fateweaver, his starting position is described as being on the border of Cathay. So I think it's safe to assume that his main target will be the Great Bastion after he gains control of his starting province. Miao Ying, we know, is the Master of Nangao, ruler of the northern provinces, sentinel of the Great Bastion, master of the storm winds, daughter of the Dragon Emperor. That's a mouthful, and she's not even close to catching up with Cetra. I just thought it was funny, because that trailer was really good, but she was selling us really hard on. So, she will start in Nangao, which is called the Lands of Stone and Steel, so I feel pretty confident throwing her right there in that province that we see on the map. The other Cathay legendary lord, Zhao Ming, the Iron Dragon, is ruler of the western provinces. From here, he protects the western entrance of Cathay from anything in the Warpstone Desert and the Mountains of Morn. It is also here that he guards any caravans that come trading, which that we know will be a major mechanic for Cathay. So let's put him right at the edge of the Warpstone Desert. Now let's move on to the monstrous gluttons of the Ogre Kingdoms. Starting with Greasus Goldtooth, since he's probably the most well-known ogre, maybe outside of Golgfag Maneater, and he's the overall race leader being the Ogre Tyrant. Taking a look at this map of the Mountains of Morn from the 8th edition Ogre Kingdoms army book, we can see Greasus' kingdom and his likely starting position. It sits here on the western edge of the mountains, and it will give a good variety of enemies to fight. You have greenskins both in and around the Mountains of Morn, Skaven, and there are some abandoned dwarfolds, but Creative Assembly will probably fill those with just minor dwarf factions for enemies to fight. Plus, there's the eventual arrival of the Chaos Dwarves and the Darklands and the Plains of Zar. That will make this area really interesting for him to play as. Moving on to Skrag the Slaughterer, he's also known as the Prophet of the Great Maw. The Great Maw is the ogre god that inhabits the bottomless pit at the center of the Warpstone Desert in between Grand Cathay and the Ogre Kingdoms. Putting Skrag right at the end of the Maw is the only option in my mind. It's just too thematic to have him anywhere else. And this would also give him a great starting position as he and Zhao Ming will probably come into conflict and have really heated battles. Skaven are almost certainly nearby because of the Warpstone, and Clan Ashen has really strong ties in the lore to Cathay. So there's interesting enough enemies for him to fight, plus a major faction to fight in Zhao Ming. Now on to Kislev. So before we start talking about either Katarin or Kostaltyn and their starting positions, here's a quick refresh of what Kislev's faction mechanics look like, because they are important, because we know that Katarin and Kostaltyn are competing. Each is trying to win the hearts and minds of the people so that their faction becomes dominant. This is a mechanic that will heavily borrow from Total War Troy, where brothers, Hector and Paris, compete to inherit the kingdom of their father. Both started relatively close, so while Katarin's faction is now called the Ice Court, it was initially revealed as Katarin's Expedition in the gameplay reveal video released back in May. So I think it's safe to assume that Katarin will be starting slightly away from Kislev's capital. Now in lore, Kislev controlled portions of territory east of the World's Edge Mountains and north of Zor and Uskul, the Great Skull Land, which is the northern portion of Chaos Dwarf's territory. So if we put her there, this would leave her close enough to the main portions of Kislev, while also giving her enemy variety Norskins, Greenskins in the Darklands, and very likely Khorne, who she features against, probably in the Chaos Waste just above Norska. Kostaltyn is the religious leader of the Great Orthodoxy and High Priest of the Cult of Ursun. So I think he's very likely to start at the nation's capital in Kislev proper. You can't see it here on the map, but it's located in the southern oblasts. Here he would have greenskins east of him at Red Eye Mountain, possibly some Norskin factions located in the Troll Line to the west, and vampires, which were hinted at in Kislev's campaign mechanics in the south. And finally, we move on to Skarbrand, the last of the base legendary lords revealed so far. Khorne and Kislev were pitted against each other in their marketing, so I'm going to put Skarbrand in the Blood Marshes. This gives him easy access to Norskins on the way and puts him right up against Kislev, who I think is going to be his main target, but it's also going to be really easy for him to go smashing into the Empire. And so as stated before, I think Kislev is going to be the main target, and conquering or confederating the Norskins on your way to ravage Kislev and the Empire would just be a super fun and thematic campaign for the Blood God. Here at the end, my friends, what do you think of the starting positions that I suggested? If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below, and I'd love to hear your theories also. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for any missing content. I really appreciate it, as it helps the video get shown to other people, and currently I am trying to hit 1,000 subscribers on the channel, so I can apply to be a verified content creator partner with Creative Assembly. Achieving this would allow me early access to new information, allowing me to produce better and faster content for all of you. My name is Warhammer, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.